The NBA regular season is coming to an end. The playoffs are right around the corner, and man, is it shaping up to be a fun one. But before we get into playoff mode, I want to take a jump to this offseason and take a look at just how wild it could be based on what we know right now. If you guys like the content, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Let's go for 69 likes on today's video, and let's get into this. Today's video is sponsored by PrizePicks. It's a player prop site that's legal in most US states. They've got tons of lines and you just pick over or under. And boys, we smacked our entry last week. Maybe I'm just a little bit better at this for March Madness, so let's see if we can go back to back. I'm taking the over on points for St. Peter's legend Doug Eddard, the kid with the mustache that dropped 20 against Kentucky. His line is at 11.5, and he's at the over in both of his tournament games. Then I'm going with Paolo Banchero over 16.5 points. It really feels like Duke is going to be counting on him down the stretch, so I like that. And then lastly, I'm going with Chet Holmgren over 4.5 blocks and steals. We saw in the first round, he's capable of 9, so give me 4.5. These games start tonight, so if you guys want to ride my hot streak or make your own entry, go to the link in the description, use code Jimmer, and they're going to give you a deposit match up to $100. Thank you PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Let's start things off with the draft. If you guys haven't been following the top draft prospects this year, we've got a very clear top 3. I would say slightly similar to what we had in 2019 with Zion, RJ, and Ja. The difference between now and 2019 is we really have no idea what order these guys are going to be coming off the board. The 3 prospects are Duke forward Paolo Banchero, Gonzaga bigman Chet Holmgren, and Auburn forward Jabari Smith. Banchero came into the year as the heavy favorite to be the top selection, and while that's no longer the case, there's still a lot of hype for this guy on the back of his freakish frame, standing at 6'10", 250 pounds, reminiscent of a young Ben Simmons. He's currently putting on a show in the NCAA tournament through the first 2 rounds, averaging 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists, shooting 54% from the field and 44% from 3. Then there's Chet Holmgren, the thin as a twig 7-foot beast out of Gonzaga. Everyone is hoping he's what we wanted Porzingis to be. He's got the rare combination for a 7-footer of 3 and D. He averaged 3.7 blocks a game this year as a freshman, while also shooting 39% from 3 on over 3 attempts a game. His skills have been on full display right now as a part of the odds-on favorite champions in the tournament. Through the first 2 games, he's recorded 7 and 4 blocks. Don't be fooled by his frame. This kid's gonna be a problem. Then there's Jabari Smith, the do-it-all power forward out of Auburn that shot up the board throughout the season. He has everything scouts are looking for: wing skills and a big frame, success on both sides of the ball. He averaged over a block and a steal a game while shooting 42% from 3 and 42% on pull-up jumpers. Now, it wasn't the prettiest for him in Auburn's most recent game that sent him home from the NCAA tournament, but that's not going to stop him from being selected very early in the upcoming draft. Now, those are the 3 guys that teams are eager to get their hands on, but even after them, you've got some really solid prospects coming off the board. Guys like Jaden Ivey of Purdue and AJ Griffin of Duke have great shots of going inside the top 5, but after them, the order does become a lot less clear. I would say this is a pretty average draft compared to the last 5 years, but the top 3 definitely competes with the best of them, at least when it comes to pre-draft expectations and how valuable these top 3 selections will be. Speaking of that, who is going to be holding these picks? On screen now you see the order, and the only team currently projected to have multiple lottery selections is the Blazers, who hold their pick at 7, as well as the Pelicans at 9, but there's a good chance this is going to change by the end of the season, as several teams likely to be in the play-in, such as the Clippers, Nets, Raptors, and Cavs, all have their first rounders going elsewhere, which is going to open the door for some crazy draft scenarios. Right now there's a heated battle for the top 3 lottery odds, and there's really only 4 teams in the running, that being the Rockets with 18 wins, Detroit and Orlando with 19, and the Thunder with 20. But interestingly, both Detroit and Orlando have actually won 4 games in their last 10. The Rockets 3 in their last 10, while the Thunder have won a whopping 0. So there's a pretty good chance we see a mix-up in the lottery order before everything is said and done. Now, without anything clearly separating the top 3 prospects that we mentioned earlier, the real change in value in this draft is going to come between the 3rd and 4th overall selection. And while these teams at the top are super likely to be up there, and I can guarantee at least one of them will be in the top 3, man, are there a lot of interesting scenarios to keep your eye on. We've seen crazy things go down in the lottery. Everyone in it is going to have a chance to go to number 1. Here's just a couple crazy scenarios we could see. The Lakers have their first rounder going to Memphis, but it has a top 10 protection on them. As things stand right now, if the lottery was tomorrow, they would have a 7.1% chance to jump into the top 4 and a 1.5% chance at the number 1 overall selection. Unlikely, but still not terrible considering how crazy it would be to add a top pick to the Lakers' current situation. The Clippers' current selection is going to be going to the Thunder unprotected. They're going to be in the play-in, but if they miss out on the playoffs, the Thunder will have a chance, while unlikely, not impossible, to hold the first 2 selections in the draft. There's a lot more insane scenarios to get into, but just with the surprising seasons from teams like the Timberwolves, Cavaliers, and Grizzlies, there's a lot of teams in the lottery that I just didn't expect going into the season, which is going to make this draft super interesting. Next up, let's take a look at free agency. Now, at first glance, it looks like this could possibly be one of the most boring free agency classes we've ever seen, but when you look a little closer, it could get wild. You've got Bradley Beal, who has a player option, and it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be declining it. As of right now, it looks like he would resign with the Wizards. Not because he wants to remain a Wizard, we don't know if that's the case, but what we do know is the financial implications. If he signs with the Wizards, he could sign a deal worth up to $246 million over 5 years. Signing with any other team, that's going to be a maximum of $179 million over 4 years. While that's a lot of money to pass on, it's not out of the question we see him decide to pass on the money for a more favorable situation at this point in his career. The more likely scenario I see playing out is him signing with the Wizards but seeking a trade shortly after. Now, I need to mention, this is assuming the Wizards are willing to give him that supermax deal. They saw it not work out with John Wall. Beal is currently done for the season with injury, and even before that was having a down year. It's decently realistic that they're not willing to give him that huge contract, which opens the door for other teams to step in with competitive offers. While on paper it seems like very few teams in the league can afford a contract like Beal, we've seen the front offices in recent years refine the sign and trade. With that being the case, there's really not many places he can't go. Another player that's going to be declining a player option is James Harden. Now, considering that the 76ers were his target destination when he requested a trade, it seems like he'd be sticking around, but after not toughing it out for too long with the Nets, this upcoming playoff run could be a huge deciding factor on his future. Then there's Harden's former teammate Kyrie Irving, who, similar to Harden, most expect to remain with his current team. But I think the last thing we know as a community is what's going on in Kyrie's head. The top unrestricted free agent is easily going to be Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, since coming to Chicago, has taken the jump to star status. He's currently one of the top shooting guards in the league, and there's no question if he hits the open market, teams are going to be scratching and clawing for his talents. Now, it's not going to be easy to get him out of Chicago based on the personal success he's had there and the positive direction that this team is headed. But again, him leaving would be far from the most surprising thing we've seen even in the last year. The top restricted free agent is going to be DeAndre Ayton. It was shocking when the Suns refused to offer him a max extension after his role in them going to the NBA Finals, but this offseason, they are going to have to make that decision. There's teams across the league that are going to offer him the max, so it's just going to come down to whether the Suns are willing to do that. They were stingy last year. This could easily happen again. Another restricted free agent is Miles Bridges, who at one point this season was actually the odds-on favorite to win Most Improved. He took a huge jump, making his decision to decline the Hornets' offer from a year ago of 4 years, $60 million, a great one. He could be looking at a deal this summer as high as 4 years, $130 million. And despite his success as a scorer, it's going to be a tough decision for the Hornets. Then there's a really interesting one, and that's Collin Sexton. The Cavaliers have taken a huge jump this season, and it really looks like they're going in the right direction, but for the most part, that's had nothing to do with Sexton, as he's missed most of the season. Darius Garland is approaching star status and looks like the future floor general of this roster. Sexton's fit was already questionable, making it extremely realistic he's on a new roster. Now, he's going to cost a pretty penny, considering last season he was averaging 24 points on great efficiency. These were just some of the top names, but there's a ton of super solid players hitting the market. Jalen Brunson, Joseph Nurkic, Jonas Valanciunas, TJ Warren, Victor Oladipo, Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley. So yes, while it doesn't seem like this free agency class is crazy, when you look at it a case-by-case basis, I've got a feeling a couple of these top guys are going to be on the move. And with how many free agents are in that solid tier, I think we should have more than enough movement to make things fun, especially when you consider the potential trade market that's ahead. This offseason really interests me when it comes to trades, due to the combination of tons of mid-level guys with the possibility of several big names. Guys like Buddy Hield, Christian Wood, Jeremy Grant, Lou Dort, even Julius Randle all seem like super realistic players to be on the move considering their current situation, both with their teams and their contract. But it's not going to stop at guys like that. We've seen year after year, whether it's a surprise Paul George trade, James Harden winning out, Chris Paul trade, Russell Westbrook switching teams every season, Anthony Davis trade. I could keep going. Crazy moves are going to happen, so let's take a look at a couple scenarios. Some of the more interesting ones involve the Lakers, for a couple reasons, but mainly just because of how many eyeballs are going to be on every decision they make. Their offseason is going to be defined by what they can do with Russell Westbrook. It's pretty clear this team is just not going to work out with him on the roster, and we all know it's not easy to offload a $40 million contract. He's got a $47 million player option, which he is going to accept. That is a guarantee. he's not going to get that over the next 10 seasons on a new deal. While no team is jumping up and down about bringing in Westbrook, there's a chance that the Lakers could package him with something like a future first and trade him to another team for a combination of contracts. Probably not the best of players, but at least give this Lakers roster a little bit more flexibility. Worst case scenario, I could see them doing a swap with the Rockets for John Wall, who's on a similarly priced deal. But speaking of the Lakers, just given their situation and how hard it's going to be to dig themselves out of it, with LeBron being 37 years old and already not planning to finish his career at the Lakers as he's waiting for his son's arrival to the league to play where he is, and the fact that he's going to be on the last year of his contract, making the price tag slightly more reasonable, it's not out of the question that LeBron James does seek a trade. Something that's not super likely right now, but we've already seen the rumors, and it wouldn't shock me, but man, would this break Twitter. We've seen LeBron move teams 3 times, but all through free agency. It would be fun to see it happen through a trade. Now, no name is going to be bigger than LeBron James, but there are still quite a few other big ones. One that I'm really starting to feel is on the horizon is Zion Williamson. What a weird situation we've seen with him this past year. During the offseason, we knew nothing about an injury, and everyone expected him to be there at tip-off of opening day. But then just before the season, he has this foot injury that's going to sideline him a few weeks. Well, weeks turned into months, and now he's missed the entire season. All this is happening after the rumors that Zion's family and camp don't want him to remain in New Orleans. It'd be a real gut shot to the Pelicans if their #1 pick from 2 seasons ago requested trade, but it really doesn't seem that crazy right now. Then you've got Damian Lillard. The situation is not the greatest in Portland. They found a really special young player in Anthony Simons. Lillard wants a massive extension to his existing contract, a contract that's already paying him $45 million in 2025, and he's already 31 years old. Those negotiations might not go well, and we're just a year removed from it looking like a foregone conclusion he was looking to leave Portland ahead of last season. I'm surprised this isn't getting talked about more. I feel like the Blazers are in a tough spot. They either give him a contract that can turn ugly very quickly just to have a roster that still can compete, or they trade him and at least put them in a better future position. I guess maybe that's not too hard of a decision. Another one that's become more interesting as of late is a player that just recently got traded, Ben Simmons. Everyone's excited to see him return to the court, especially since he was going to be playing for a contender like the Brooklyn Nets, but it doesn't look like we're going to have that opportunity. Simmons has a herniated disc in his back that'll probably keep him out for the rest of the year, past this season, depending on how everything works out with the Nets, such as Kyrie's new contract. I could see them shopping Simmons pretty heavily, given his trade value compared to his impact for the Nets specifically, as that's purely an unknown as of right now. It's not going to stop at these guys. There's heavy rumors that Donovan Mitchell might not be looking to stick around in Utah for too much longer, and the Knicks have him at the top of their target board. Despite the Kings just trading away Tyrese Haliburton for Domantas Sabonis, something that's going to go down as one of the worst deals in league history, it's not working out. They've been one of the worst teams since the deadline. I think it's very realistic they move on from Sabonis quickly to try and get just a piece of the value that they gave up. It wouldn't be surprising for them also to move on from De'Aaron Fox. It's not working out in Sacramento, as it hasn't for decades, but whatever makes logical sense for them to do, just expect the opposite. Now let me make this very clear. I don't think the Thunder getting the top 2 picks in the draft, Kyrie leaving the Nets, or LeBron requesting a trade are likely events, but I do truly think we are in for a fun offseason. The years where it appears that all the big names are going to be free agents, and it's going to be NBA roster mania, usually disappoint. A lot of players stick with their teams and ink deals early. It's years like this, where there's no super clear title favorite, when there's not a ton of unrestricted free agents, that teams tend to get a little bit more aggressive and things get crazy. So nothing is a guarantee, but I would start to get excited if I were you.